It has been 1 year since AEW had its first official show. It's been 1 year since the world changed in professional wrestling. There have been comments, there have been criticisms, there have been legitimate reasons to not get hyped behind the AEW machine, and there have been a lot of positives and negatives along the way. Fans were hyped, were ecstatic, because for years you've had WWE, and really people only had that mentality with WWE. It was always a negative viewpoint.
It's our boy! It's the new Cruiserweight champ!
And it felt like wrestling was starting to dumb down, was starting to lose its edge. Eventually, a lot of things started happening. A lot of people started leaving in droves, and WWE gave them their release thinking they wouldn't amount to anything.
You are not the first out of touch old man to not believe in me.
Eventually, you're going to release someone that would probably do something that you'll probably regret not doing with. And that eventually happened with a guy named Cody Rhodes. Considering what happened after he left,
this is a revolution.
It was pretty shocking of where everything went. And all this started with a simple tweet by Dave Meltzer. And an acceptance of a challenge was made. So we're going to take a look at a huge retrospective in individual chapters of AEW, the genesis, all the way to what could be potentially AEW's big future megastar. We're going to take a look once and for all AEW's history 1 year later. We all know the story of AEW, how it all started. It started with a simple tweet from Dave Meltzer. The plan was originally supposed to be a Ring of Honor show, but it eventually started to grow and evolve from it and turned into an independent, self-funded event. And this event grew in concept when Cody and the Young Bucks were basically the producers of the event. Then it was later announced Kenny Omega, the then New Japan Pro Wrestling champion, Brandy Rhodes, Cody's wife, and Stephen Amell from Arrow would participate in this event. It was announced that the show would take place on September 1st of 2018, and then they had announced one match. They sold out in less than 30 minutes, and they had only announced one match. So then, as the months led up to it, you eventually had future AEW stars like Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF, but then also you got Kota Ibushi, SoCal Uncensored, Best Friends, the Briscoe Brothers, Madison Rayne, all coming in and giving their support to join this event. Then it was announced on July 25th, Bandito would partake in this event. Then, as time went on, from August 15th to 18th, Brian Cage, Billy Gunn, Jimmy Jacobs, Marco Stunt were all announced for the show. They had 11 matches fully announced for the show, and this was possibly the greatest wrestling show, looking back on it, since WrestleMania 17. So, as much as people like to say this wasn't like a big deal to WWE, I think it was to WWE a big deal to be told, hey, there's this show that just got over 10,000 people within 30 minutes. And plus, there were so much surprises. Like Chris Jericho showed up at the show, attacked Kenny Omega to promote the Jericho Cruise after his match with Pentagon Jr.
Look out! It's Chris Jericho! Chris Jericho has assaulted Kenny Omega again!
But All In was a critical and commercial success. Critics loved it, fans loved it. It was really a big night for wrestling people. For fans who were becoming disgruntled with WWE and thinking like there was never going to be something that made it great again. It was like, well, what could take on WWE? What could give fans hope again? And All In provided that outlet that we're probably going to get another rebirth for wrestling. And this also proved very financially viable for some wrestlers that were pretty much unknown. Like Dr. Britt Baker would join AEW a year later, and Chelsea Green got an offer from WWE. Bandito was going ahead and given offers from the Young Bucks from the Elite when they were coming up with the concept of their company. He was given an offer from WWE, but he signed with Ring of Honor. So wrestling was starting to feel cool again for fans. And this even gave wrestling promotions like ROH and New Japan some creative ideas, like they managed to do it on their own, self-funded, and all they had to their thing was name value and word of mouth with the internet. New Japan started having the ideas, ROH started having ideas, especially Ring of Honor, because they're known for their past stuff. Like, we had CM Punk, we had Samoa Joe, we had all these great people that are now in WWE, but we have name value recognition. But now they have an alliance with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And long and behold, the promotions outside of WWE started thinking, like, we can do that. Like, New Japan Pro Wrestling started really pushing their westward expansion to expand to the North America. ROH started getting a little ballsy with trying to see if they could get a show in Madison Square Garden. They finally did get a show in Madison Square Garden. However, there was some issues along the way. Let's get to that part. So, it was said that Madison Square Garden reached out to ROH and says, hey, would you like to do a show here? I believe that was the context. And then, right before anything could be finalized, it was revealed that ROH was told later by Madison Square Garden owners, we can't do a show in Madison Square Garden, I'm sorry. They asked why, and they said WWE called us about that. Now fans were like telling Cody and the Young Bucks, hey, you think you could do a wrestling promotion? And then on Being the Elite, when Hangman Page says, hey, my phone shows something different. He reveals it, revealing AEW. Then it started leaning more towards what was going to happen next. Like, because heading into this, you had a lot of talk going around. Like, okay, so Marty Scurll's still with Ring of Honor. He's not done yet. NWA got back their world title because Cody dropped it a couple of weeks later to Nick Aldis. And I was disappointed by that. I was really hoping that maybe Cody would hold on that belt a lot longer. And then you start hearing that networks were like interested in like, hey, we'll run a show for this potential company you're doing. We'll run a show for another All In. And now you're hearing all this stuff going around, and you're getting a little more hype. Like the signs are there. And then it was announced that All Elite Wrestling was happening, and WWE started to feel a little nervous. And at the time, WWE was pretty much in a state of corporate anarchy. There was chaos with the roster. No one knew what to do anymore. It was turning into WCW 2000. And then you started hearing this happening, and it was like, there's an alternative now. This led into some things going on, especially with Jon Moxley, who was at the time in WWE as Dean Ambrose. And Dean Ambrose had expressed on a podcast with Chris Jericho that he wasn't happy. And then you had the whole incident with Roman's leukemia and the whole situation around that. And apparently Ambrose was being told, okay, say this line. And you could tell Ambrose was trying his best not to cry when he had to say that line. To be told that you have to go out there, not be a heel, but you have to be a genuine asshole to fans and to one of the person you consider a brother in arms in the ring, to say a real world issue going on with him and say Roman's going to answer to the man upstairs when there was a real chance Roman could die from leukemia. To hear that stuff, it was fucked up for a lot of people. But as then the Road to Double or Nothing was going on at the time, they did their shows and whatnot, the Road to Double or Nothing. So this concept starts growing and growing. First it was announced that Cody and the Young Bucks would officially sign with the promotion. They were the first contractors joining up. And it was announced that Tony Khan, the entrepreneur, football executive, and longtime wrestling fan, was basically Ted Turner. He was going to be the president of the company and basically throw his money in there. Cody's wife was then announced on January 3rd to be the chief brandy officer. And they had taken the best guys they had of ROH, like Cody was gone, the Young Bucks were gone. They helped rebuild ROH to some big extent. SoCal Uncensored just said, we're leaving. Hangman Page, I'm gone. I'm joining up with my buddies. Independent wrestler Dr. Britt Baker, Joey Janelle, Penelope Ford would join up. MJF would join up. Pac, aka Neville, would join up. And at the time, Pac was basically coming back to wrestle again in Dragon Gate. He won the Dragon Gate World title, essentially. And then it was announced, Chris Jericho's on board. Told you the rumors were true. And then came the whole Kenny Omega debate. There was a lot of word going around. Kenny Omega was given an offer from New Japan Pro Wrestling to stay. New Japan realized we can't lose him. He is our biggest cash cow. We lost the Young Bucks. We lost Cody. Our westward expansion is in danger if we don't keep him. WWE wanted him. AEW wanted him. BTE wanted him. I believed he was going to go to AEW. I didn't think he would stay in New Japan, and I didn't think he would go to WWE unless they gave him one thing. Control over his character. That's the one thing I'm pretty sure he would have wanted. And then they had Double or Nothing. I look at that and I was like, it's not as phenomenally epic as All In, but it was still a pretty awesome show. Then Jon Moxley closes out the show, showing up and doing his big debut, and he cuts a promo where it feels raw, it feels untamed, it feels unrestricted.
This is what you call a paradigm shift.
But this is when things got a little bit more complicated regarding Kenny Omega. Like, a lot of people were saying, why isn't Kenny being Kenny Omega that we knew from New Japan? I actually had a theory on this, and this was a very important one. You see, heading into 2019, Kenny Omega was reportedly working hurt. And considering how he was always told, you have to steal the show, you have to be the best bout machine, you have to live it, by New Japan, it eventually is very taxing on the human body. And if he had went to WWE, he probably would have been told to do the same thing, but do it 300 days a year at house shows events, at special events, at 15 pay-per-views a year. There would be no way Kenny would continue to be able to work that level. So AEW provided the fresh alternative. He could do what he wants. He could have a more relaxing schedule, because that was one of the biggest things they promoted, was that we're not going to have that many house shows. We're not going to work these workers 300 days a year. We're going to work them 120 days. But when Jon Moxley joined up with them, it was this saying that we're here, we're taking over, we're going to shock the wrestling world. But there were problems. It was specifically one person, Cody Rhodes. A lot of people were worried that he was becoming the Triple H of AEW, like, you know, what Triple H did during his Reign of Terror days. So at Double or Nothing, Cody did this entrance with his wife, and he was shown to be given a sledgehammer and a throne back at the arena, where he smashes it with the sledgehammer to essentially say, yeah, we know who you're talking about. And Cody even admitted that when I did that, I had burned that bridge, and I'm probably never going to get it back. So this happened, but heading into Double or Nothing, there was a political problem within AEW and the continued outside usage of Pac. So Pac had signed with AEW, but he had a commitment with Dragon Gate. He was originally supposed to battle Hangman Adam Page. The original plan was apparently Pac was going to win and then fight Kenny Omega and all that. But apparently Pac would have to eventually lose, but Dragon Gate said, we can't have him lose. He's our world champion, and we have a strong belief you have to keep the champion strong. And Pac agreed with that. And a lot of people were mad at Pac for doing that, but at the same time, you gotta realize, like, maybe there's an incident a few years back that probably triggered this moment for him to believe this, because when he was in WWE and during the final days, he was essentially told, look, you're talented, you're a great guy, but you do not make us anything. You have no value to us. When Enzo Amore beat him with a low blow and won the Cruiserweight title, Pac having defended it for 9 months, trying to build up the Cruiserweight division again, but failing miserably because they weren't getting the respect they deserved, or had rightfully earned, to be told, you're not as important as Enzo, and we will take that title off of you through the most disgraceful way possible. I get the feeling that was the moment Pac Neville realized, I did so much for you, I built NXT for you, and you're gonna treat me like shit? So that happened, and Pac would come back heading into All Out. Then Fyter Fest and Fight for the Fallen happened. So Cody was off the heels of a very emotional, very storytelling epic match with his brother Dustin.
Crossroads again! Hook of the leg!
Far leg grapevine, it is over.
However, in Fyter Fest, which was an okay show, it was free, so that helped, Cody fights Darby Allin, one of their biggest, highest prospects going on in AEW right now, at the time of this video. He made a match that ends in a draw, 20-minute draw.
The time limit has expired. This is a time limit draw.
Cody asks, give me 5 more minutes, he's talking to the referee, and then Shawn Spears, aka Ty Dillinger, who signed up with them, he comes in, holds a steel chair up, and cracks it over the head of Cody. However, that chair bent it a little bit to scar the back of his head, leading to a cut that pulled all that blood coming out. So that's when AEW made the decision, when they were getting criticism for that, was like, okay, you're right. Then we get to Fight for the Fallen. Cody and his brother Dustin are tag teaming against the Young Bucks. This is the part where people got more annoyed with Cody and his antics. I get Cody's style of wrestling is more slow-paced, storytelling based, but when you have a match, especially with the guys like the Young Bucks, who are more fast-paced and aggressive and more highlight reel styled, it's tough to make that work. That match was so slow, fans actually started leaving and it felt way too long for people. Then you got, heading into All Out, Cody does one more fucked up mistake. That was when he had his match with Shawn Spears. You see, Cody has an entrance, he wants to do extravagant entrances. However, he has a dog with him, and it was very hypersensitive to hearing. So that happens, and he beats Shawn Spears, which doesn't help much for fans. So the Fyter Fest and Fight for the Fallen shows had their problems, but Cody was definitely a big circle of problems during the first few months heading into Dynamite. And then we get to Dynamite. Sure enough, it leads to this glorious rebirth, I called it, because now they announced they're having Wednesday Night Dynamite. They're going to do all this crazy stuff. And then you hear NXT is going to follow suit. Like, AEW first announced Wednesday Night Dynamite for Wednesday night. NXT, while also Wednesday night, was a network exclusive show. Fox wanted NXT on FS1. WWE had to lie, essentially, to get them not to think NXT was good, and they got a deal with USA. Hey, air it on Wednesday night, we'll give you 2 hours. So when that was announced, TNT, being back in the wrestling business, that was hyped up, and now you had the Wednesday Night War, essentially. So this is the genesis of AEW. Wednesday Night War is officially on. The AEW show, Dynamite versus NXT. All this insanity is happening. We're all hyped up and we're ready to set sail with this. So this concludes Chapter 1, the genesis of AEW. I will look forward to you all in Chapter 2.